Canterbury. He's a survival expert who lived in Northport, Florida, where the search is underway for Brian Laundrie. So, Dave, Brian Laundrie's parents are convinced he's in this nature preserve. That's what they've been saying, and that they wouldn't look anywhere else. If Laundrie has been there for the past 25 days, how likely do you think it is that he could still be alive and, undetected to this point?
I think a lot of that depends really on how prepared he was when he entered the area to begin with. If he had supplies in a backpack, which it's rumored that he had ways to disinfect water through filtration and cover elements to protect himself from the weather and things like that, he could survive for a certain period of time. But if he had ways to gather food and process that food, he could survive even longer. The question really becomes, if you can gather food, how are you going to process and cook that food without starting fire? And if your filtration fails, how are you going to disinfect the water without fire? Starting fire is going to be a big no-no for him if he doesn't want to get found or seen. So I think it's going to be very difficult for him to stay out there for a very long period of time. But I think up to this point, he could have enough stuff in a backpack to have gotten along this far and still be there.
Well, that's a pretty significant thing to say. I mean, you understand this as well. I mean, a lot of people hear 25 days, they wouldn't think that. So I think it's important that you give that context. Dave, they're talking about how he has experience hiking the Appalachian Trail. Obviously, with the van life that he had been living with Gabby, we know he has a significant amount of experience, but you know what that really means and what it would really require. So would any of this really prepare him to survive in the wild or in that Florida Nature Reserve?
I think if you're talking about the Florida Nature Preserve, not necessarily. I think there's a lot of things to take into consideration that you wouldn't have to worry about as an Appalachian Trail hiker. You can, on the Appalachian Trail, walk 2 or 3 days, bounce into a town, resupply any equipment that you may need to replace, get food that you may need to get for the next 2 or 3 days, and move on. You can even get postal drops of supplies and food. He's not going to have that opportunity if he's in that wildlife area, and that's going to make it more difficult for him because he will have to find food from the wild sooner or later. And again, 25 days, people go that long without food, and it's not a major health concern. But going much longer than that is going to become a major health concern, especially with the weather getting colder and his body core temperature adjusting to that and burning more calories faster.